Antagonists. Probably one of the most important parts of a movie. It's because the antagonists that are protagonists have to evolve throughout the story. To make the story, there needs to be some sort of antagonist. Whether if it's a human-esque antagonist like Thanos, a more animalistic antagonist like xenomorphs from Aliens, or a more metaphorical antagonist like Godzilla. Something I really like to say is, a movie is only as good as its villain. But of course, there are a few exceptions. Like most Marvel movies, the first two How to Train Your Dragon movies, and of course the topic of this video, the Jurassic franchise. The lack of a good villain in the JP franchise has really bothered me, because this is a topic that I've been wanting to cover for a long time, but I really noticed this when I made the video on Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. So, let's just cut right to the chase there, and cover the antagonists in the Jurassic franchise. In the Jurassic franchise, there are two kinds of villains. One are the human antagonists, and the other are the dinosaur antagonists. But first, and in this video, I will go over the human antagonists. In the original Jurassic Park, we have two human antagonists, Dodson and Dennis Nedry. Dennis Nedry is the one of the two that everybody remembers, but I think it's mainly due to his death scene with Dilophosaurus, and the scene which still makes me laugh to this very day.
You didn't say the magic word.
Please! But due to this is when Nedry fails as an antagonist, because he isn't intimidating. Hell, villains don't have to be intimidating. Villains can be more comedic, like Dr. Evil, or that main villain from Samurai Jack, or whoever got the name of. But when your antagonist is remembered for his death scene mainly because of the dinosaur featured, and a scene where he isn't even featured, that is a very disappointing antagonist in my opinion. But then there's Dodson, the antagonist who is only in one scene, and if you don't remember Dodson, he is the CEO, at least I think he's the CEO, of Biosyn, and he is the man who hires Nedry to get the embryos off the island. And he has no impact on the audience due to him only being in one scene, so we can get what his character is about, or why we should why we should fear him. And now this is where the books step in, because I prefer Dodson as a antagonist in the books to the movies, because in the movies he is very underwhelming. And I think it would be great to have Dodson return as an antagonist in Jurassic World 3 or something, but I don't think that'll be happening anytime soon. On to the Lost World, we have arguably two antagonists, but I personally wouldn't count Roland Tembo as an antagonist due to how charismatic and charming he is time to time, along with his deleted scene which makes his character even more of a good guy. So, excluding him, we only have one antagonist, Peter Ludlow. Oh, Peter. I hate this villain. I don't hate him in a good way, I hate him in a bad way. I think he is a terrible antagonist. He is the equivalent of a rich kid who doesn't respect animals. He isn't intimidating or threatening at all. I hate him. Let's move on. Now on to Jurassic Park 3. And as far as I can tell, there is no human antagonist. Which I'm fine with, and I'll get more in depth into part 2. But if I did have to choose an antagonist, it would be Amanda Kirby. So I can have an excuse to hate her!
What's a bad idea?
Most annoying creature ever to cross my path.
And in Jurassic World, we have two antagonists. We have Hoskins and Dr. Henry Wu. Now, I'll talk about Wu later, but let's cover Hoskins first. I'd say Hoskins is a decent antagonist, I guess. He's very your generic, oh, let's turn this into a weapon kind of villain. He isn't intimidating or threatening, but he does have some antagonistic qualities to him. Mainly the scene where the Indominus escapes. No. Pardon me right there. The scene where the Indominus escapes. The scene where the Indominus breaks into the pterosaur cage thing. And the scene when he stands on a helicopter pad looking into the park when the pterosaurs are rampaging. So overall, I'd say he's a decent villain at best. So let's just move on to Fallen Kingdom so I can eventually talk about Wu. In Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, we have two antagonists. One is Dr. Henry Wu, who once again we will talk about later. We also have Eli Mills, whose name I needed to look up because I couldn't remember it. That isn't a good sign! Eli is a very weak antagonist. I can barely remember anything about him. All I can remember is that he is the man who got the dinosaurs shipped to the mainland. Apart from that, I can't remember anything about him, and that is a really bad sign. Even though I don't like Peter Ludlow, at least I can remember things about him. But Eli, he is as plain as generic as a villain can be. The only parts I can remember about him is that the part where he kills John Hammond's old business partner, and his terrible death scene. Even those scenes, I mainly remember those scenes because of what happens around him and not what happens because of him. So because of this, I think Eli is the worst human antagonist in the whole entire Jurassic franchise. Now we should talk about the elephant in the room. Dr. Henry Wu. Dr. Wu is meant to be the Jurassic franchise's equivalent to Thanos, when he's built over multiple movies, starting in Jurassic World and presumably ending in Jurassic World 3. But it just doesn't make sense. The first time we saw him in Jurassic Park, he was just an average scientist. There was nothing to him which hinted he was a villain. Even in Jurassic World, he wasn't intimidating or threatening. You don't really get that much of a feeling that he is meant to be an antagonist. But it's when you get stuff like the websites and Jurassic World Evolution, where Dr. Wu seems to have some kind of a god complex. But that aside, the films, they're meant to be things that you're meant to look at to get everything. So the canonicity of the video game and the websites are all questionable. But when you need to go out for films to find aspects of this character being an antagonist, to me, that isn't a good antagonist. Let her alone a good build-up for one, along with the fact that B.D. Wong is just a bad cast for a villain. I'm not saying the actor is bad or has a limited range. I'm just saying that he doesn't make a very convincing antagonist. Well, that took me longer than expected. I was just expecting this to be boop 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 done. But no! This video took me 5 hours to script just for the human villains alone. And the video is only about 9 to 10 minutes long. So, Jesus Christ. It's because of this that I'm making this a part 1 to a part 2. Part 2 will be about the dinosaur antagonists, because this video has been longer than expected and I'll need to do a ton of editing, and that is not counting the editing that I'll need to do for the dinosaur video. So don't forget to look out for that sometime next week. And now it's time for me to go. So here This is Dom Steel One, signing out.